Dereta, dereta, dereta. Stoppa, stoppa, stoppa. Muovere, muovere. Hop, 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 hop. Non muova. Ah, l'asparagus.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Stephanie and welcome back to my channel. So in the video today, I'm going to be talking about what should you do while you're waiting to, for example, say you submitted your application already to PA schools and you're waiting to get your interview. What should you do meanwhile? What should you do if, for example, you submitted your application and you also got an interview and you're waiting to see if you got accepted to PA school? So what should you do meanwhile? So I'm going to be addressing this question because it was a question I kept having in emails that were being sent to me and also in some of the comments in my YouTube videos. So I wanted to address this question in a separate YouTube video. So it is that time of the year where most of you have already submitted your applications and you're just waiting for your interview, or you're waiting to see if you got accepted into PA school. You already interviewed. So I'm going to talk about also my experience, what I did. So one of the things I want to say is that I did apply 2 times to PA school. I know I keep repeating this in most of the videos I make, and the reason why I do repeat it is that I don't want you to feel demotivated if you don't get accepted the first time into PA school. Majority of my classmates did not get accepted on the first time. They got accepted the second time, like myself, third time, fourth, even fifth time. One of my classmates applied 5 times and she finally was accepted on her 5th time to PA school. So motivation, it's really important to stay motivated. And within those cycles, what I learned is that I learned how to better prepare my PA school application, what it was lacking, whether it was patient care experience hours, healthcare experience hours, my personal statement, how to perfect it, how to get better letters of recommendation. Maybe my first letters of recommendation weren't that strong, which I know one of them wasn't. So I made sure that I got better letters of recommendation the second time, and also how to interview better, what mistakes I made the first time or the first cycle of applications, and also how I turned in my CASP application late, so it wasn't as early as it should have been. So all this I learned the first time I applied. That way, the second time I applied, I didn't make these mistakes again. So what should you do while you are waiting? So what I recommend is you always want to have a plan A and a plan B, of course. You want to have your plan A that if you get accepted into PA school, that's awesome, right? Now, your plan B is, what if you don't get accepted into PA school? And that's one of the things I always had in the back of my mind, specifically my first year. So I made sure that while I was waiting for those responses when I interviewed, I made sure that I got more patient care experience hours. So I worked a lot during that year. The first year I applied, I had 0 hours of patient care experience. Now, I wasn't very familiar with PA school applications, etc., and I wasn't really familiar with researching the schools before I submit my PA school application. So some of the schools did require 1,000 or a certain amount of patient care experience hours, and I did not have this on my application, and I still submitted it and I got rejected instantly. So what I did is that I learned that I needed to get patient care experience hours. This was what my application was lacking. I had more than 4,000 hours of healthcare experience hours, but I had 0 patient hands-on healthcare experience hours. So what I did is that during that time that I was waiting to see if I got accepted, is I started working at the urgent care, and I was cross-trained as a medical assistant, so I was working back and forth, and I made sure that I got my 1,000 hours in case I didn't get accepted the first time for my second year application. In addition, I made sure I also had more healthcare experience hours. So at the time I was also working at a hospital in the ER as a registrar. So it's not hands-on experience, but I am working alongside doctors, nurses, and I do interact with patients. So I made sure I also had a lot more healthcare experience hours while I was waiting for my acceptance or rejection letter. In addition, during that time, I also did an extra research. So I did one more year of research. I added that to my application. And I also made sure I had more volunteer hours, more shadowing hours, and I was also trying to see if I can get new letters of recommendation to apply in case I didn't get accepted the first year I applied. So what I recommend is that meanwhile, while you're waiting, to have that plan B in the back of your head. Of course, you know, you want to get accepted into PA school, which is awesome. If you get accepted into PA school the first year, that's great. Some of my classmates that I talked to did get accepted into PA school their first time, so that's amazing. Unfortunately, I didn't, so I had to apply twice. So I made sure that during that first year, I was working on my application. So this is what I recommend, is that if you're waiting to see if you're going to get accepted, to see if you're going to get any interviews, make sure that you're still working on your application. Whether you look at your application and you say, hey, I'm lacking shadowing hours, or hey, I'm lacking volunteer hours, or I don't have a lot of patient care experience hours or healthcare experience hours, or my personal statement isn't as strong as it should have been, or I feel like my letters of recommendation are as strong as they should have been, or they don't describe the type of individual I am, the type of worker I am, my qualities, etc. Make sure that you're working on your application. Another thing I really want to stress also is, if you can, ask the individuals who write you the letters of recommendation, if you can, before they send them, if they can just show you. And that's what I asked of my professor and my manager who did write me letters of recommendation. They did send them to me, and I was able to see what they had written, and also if they had missed some things. Like one of the PAs I work with, he had mistyped the research I did, so thankfully I looked over it and he was able to go back and fix that. So that's why it's really, really important to make sure to look over, if you can, the letters of recommendation, and to see that everything is correct for what they've said. I remember the first time I applied to PA school, I did not do this, and he then showed me it after he submitted it, and I looked at it and I was just, he had said in the letter of recommendation that I really liked working with Mexican people when it was actually Hispanic individuals, Latino community, but he had already submitted it. I submitted the application, so I learned my lesson after that first time I applied, so I made sure not to make that same mistake the second time. So by the second time, I made sure that I went over the letters of recommendation just to make sure there wasn't any mistakes or anything like that. So overall, make sure that you're adding to your application while you're waiting. Always have that plan B in the back of your mind. That way, say if you don't get accepted the first time into PA school, you apply once more. You didn't waste an entire year just waiting, and your application did not change at all. That way, the schools that you had already applied to, you send the application again, and they've seen that you have added more to your application. You've added more patient care experience, or you have a new letter of recommendation, or you did new research, etc. That way they see that you're actually really serious about getting into PA school, and that you're adding a lot more to your application. So this is really, really important. So meanwhile, while you're waiting, I can't stress it enough, add more to your application. Look at your application and see, what am I lacking, and add more. If it's more patient care experience hours, then get more hands-on experience hours. If it's healthcare experience hours or shadowing, then shadow a physician assistant, volunteer. So keep adding to your application. Alright guys, so I hope you guys like my videos. If you guys have any comments, any questions, any feedback from me, make sure you comment below, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.